Previous class we have studied a few models. The two models that we studied were extreme programming and adaptive software development. The two models we have studied. Now there are total 7 models within the agile process models. We are going to study the remaining models today. The next model is DSDM, Dynamic System Development Method. Now, this is an agile software development approach that provides a framework for building and maintaining systems which meet tight time constraints. Now, in here, we have studied that extreme programming is used when you've got small to medium sized projects which has got changing requirements. Now, whereas this DSDM, this dynamic system development method, is used when you need to create a particular project within a limited time. That is, you're given a month's time or 2 months or 6 months time. You need to create that project within that limited time. Now, tight time constraints means it is very limited. It can be from 1 to 2 months of time. At that, when you have this type of scenario, you're going to go for DSDM. Now, this DSDM method, it is very similar to the RAD process. Now, if you remember what is RAD, RAD stands for Rapid Application Development. Now, within this rapid application development, one model that we have studied that was called as a spiral model. Now, within the spiral model, what we have done, we are making prototypes for the software that we are going to develop, and then you're every time going to every time going to identify what are the risks. You're going to eliminate the risk, and you're going to again modify the prototype. That is keep on adding features and taking feedback from the customer. The same thing, the same approach is used by DSDM. Now, like extreme programming, ASD, the previous two models that you have studied, they suggest an iterative software process approach. Now, iterative approach means it is a continuous approach. That is, you're going to deliver this, you're going to implement first feature, then you're on top of it, you're going to add another feature. That is an iterative software process, step upon steps. You're going to complete the process within multiple steps. The project will be completed within multiple steps. Now, this DSDM, it makes use of time box scheduling. Now, time box scheduling means now this tight time constraints, that is called as your time box, that you need to deliver the software within the limited time frame. So this is going to make use of time box scheduling. That is, you need to complete the entire project within the specified time that was given by the end user. Now, in here, each and every increment that is in here, we have studied, I have told you that you're going to implement first feature, then another feature. Now, all of these features, individually, these features are going to be time boxed. That is, this feature need to be delivered within some specified time frame. Then the another feature should be delivered within the specified time frame. Now, this DSDM approach, it has got 3 different iterative cycles. You've got the functional model iteration, design and build iteration, and implementation. You've got 3 iterative cycles. These are your iterative cycles. Whereas you're going to have 2 additional life cycle activities, that is going to be feasibility study and business study. Now, we'll first start from the feasibility study. Now, what is going to happen within the feasibility study is you're going to gather the basic requirements of the particular project. Now, when you have the basic requirement of a particular project, you get to know why you're developing the particular software. When you know the basic requirements, you're also going to identify what are the different constraints. What are constraints? Constraints are limitations for the particular project. So what are the constraints that are associated with this requirement that need to build? Now, in here, when you know the basic requirements and the different constraints for the particular project, you're going to identify whether this particular project need to be developed using the DSDM approach. You identify whether this particular project, it is a viable candidate for DSDM. You identify whether it is a viable candidate. If suppose this project requires to be delivered within specified time period, then only it is going to match the feasibility study. That is, you identify in here whether you're going to deliver the software within the limited time frame, whether it meets this requirement, then you are going to start with the project. Then the next one is the business study. Now, as the name says, business study, you're going to identify the different functional requirements and the different information requirements. You identify the two different types of requirements, and in here you're going to identify whether this particular project is going to provide you with the business value. Now in here, the term business value means profit. Now in here, the functions and features that are used within this project, whether they are unique or not. Now if you are developing a particular project that has got all the same features that are already within the market and there are multiple projects associated, then you're just wasting your money and resources for a software to be built that no one is going to buy. So you're going to identify the different functionalities and information requirements, and then you're going to identify whether this particular project is going to provide any business value. And in here, when you identify whether it is going to give you some specific business value, you're going to define the architecture. That is how you're going to develop the project that will be identified. Then coming on to the functional model iteration. Now within this function model iteration, what you're going to do, as you have identified the functional and the information requirements, based on that you're going to design a prototype. Now what is a prototype? Prototype is a model, not exactly the software that you're developing, but a model of the software that you're developing. So in here you're going to build a prototype. Now in here, this prototype is built upon a particular increment. That is, if suppose the first within the first increment you need to deliver some basic functionalities. Now if you're designing a particular project for e-commerce website, so in here you're going to identify basic first. What are you going to identify? Like first, Amazon got started with the Kindle, so the first increment within this will be the Kindle website. So that will be the first requirement. Now in here, this prototype is designed so that you can identify what are the different functionalities that the customer wants, so that you identify the customer's point of view. Now this prototype is developed so that you can gather requirements. That is your functional model iteration. Now when you gather the requirements, now when a prototype is developed, you're going to show this to the end user. Now the end user is going to see this prototype, he's going to perform a few operations, and based on that he is also going to provide feedback for this particular prototype, that this whether the features that you're embedding within the software, whether those are the same that the end user has requested. That or if you want any more changes within the particular model, that can also be made within the next prototype. So this is the function model iteration. The next one is design and build iteration. Now within this design and build operation, as within the previous phase, you've seen that we have designed prototype. Now this prototype is going to have all the requirements from the end user, and you're also going to have the different feedbacks from the customer. So in here, you're going to revisit the prototype to identify whether all the functionalities that were told by the customer, whether all of them are present within the main software that you're developing, whether all the feedback that were given by the end user, whether all of them are present or not. This is going to be identified within the design and build iteration. Now in here, for some projects, this design and build operation and functional model operation, they are going to occur concurrently. That is, you're going to design a prototype. Now based on that prototype, as a prototype is being built, you gather the feedback. Those changes will be made concurrently in the main software. So for some projects, this is going to happen concurrently, or else it is going to happen first the function model iteration is going to take place, then the design and build iteration is going to take place. Then the next one is the last iterative cycle is implementation. Now within this implementation, now as you're developing this prototypes, now in here, the multiple increments that you're providing, those are not 100% complete. You know that they are not 100% complete. Now based upon that also, even if it is not complete, if any changes are requested by the end user, those changes need to be embedded within the software that you're designing. But you can add these changes within the next increment, the next delivery that you're going to give. You can add those changes within the software. Now within the implementation, it also means that the latest prototype that you have developed, that is going to be embedded within the software. Latest prototype means the latest feature that you have delivered to the end user, that is going to be embedded within the life cycle of the project. That is in here, every time you're adding one prototype, now in here first prototype was developed, so that is going to be added within the main software. Then the next prototype that you're developing, that will be added. Then the last prototype that you've developed, everything is going to be embedded within the software. It is like you're installing updates for a particular application. Now this DSDM approach can be used along with extreme programming. You can use extreme programming plus DSDM. Combining this extreme programming and DSDM, it becomes a solid process model. So this is the DSDM Agile process model. The next model is Scrum. Now this particular Agile model, it was developed by Jeff Sutherland. This person has designed this particular Scrum model. Now this Scrum is also going to have some specific principles that need to be followed while you're following the Scrum Agile methodology. Now these principles are similar with the Agile manifesto. The 12 principles that we have studied for the Agile process model, you've got a few similar ones within the Scrum. So in here, small working teams are organized when you're working with Scrum. Now you can have multiple teams if you're working on a large project, but in here the team size is going to be small. The next one is the process must be adaptable to both technical and business changes. Now in here, we know that Agile means you can make as many changes you want based upon the requirements, technology, and people. Now in here, within this Scrum methodology, it should be adaptable based on technical. We know in here from the definition of agility, technical changes can be made. Whereas within this, you should be able to make any business changes also. Now business changes means if suppose adding some specific functionality is affecting the market, that is, it is going to increase the sales of the particular project, then you're going to make those changes within the model so that it gives you more profit. The next principle is the process yields frequent software increments. Like the previous models that we have studied, like extreme programming, DSDM, all of the software that are built using these technologies, these have frequent software increment. That is, every time each feature or each functionality is delivered in increments. You're not going to have the complete software in hand. You're going to have multiple features within hand. That is, first you can have some basic features, then upon that you can have more features. Then constant testing and documentation is performed as the product is built. Now in here, we know that the software is being delivered in multiple increments, but even if you're developing the software in multiple increments, for each increment that is going to be deployed to the customer, these need to be performed testing. Like these different increments should not be delivered without performing testing. That is, whatever you're delivering, it should be the best that is being developed. It should not have any bugs within the software. It should not have any errors. It should be accurate. That is why you're going to perform testing. And documentation should also be done. Now, why we are performing documentation? Why we are making a documentation? We are making the documentation so that you identify what are the what were the requirements, then next what were the changes requested. Each of the things in here you have in written. That is how many changes were there. Each and everything is documented so that at the end you can tell the end user how many changes were there, so that you can identify, or you can say that why if suppose a major change was embedded within the software. Now this major change is going to require a lot of time. So in here you need to convince the end user that this particular increment needs some more amount of time, because in here the basic requirements was something else and the changes that you made is a completely different. So in here this documentation is very necessary. Then the last Scrum principle is Scrum process provides the ability to declare a product done whenever required. Now in here, whenever you're using the Scrum Agile method, now in here this Scrum process has the ability to declare a product done whenever required. That is, in here suppose the end user is going to come and tell you, I want this update also, this also. Now those can be small meaningless updates. So this Scrum process, like the team that is working on this particular process, if they say that the process, that this particular product is being completed, that is no more changes can be added. If now at a certain amount of time, adding changes within the software, it can complicate the software, or it is going to increase the cost that the customer is not satisfied to pay. So in here, the Scrum process can say that the product is done whenever required. Now the Scrum methodology, it emphasizes the use of a set of software process patterns that have proven effectiveness for projects with tight timelines. There's a summary of the software that you're studying. Now in here, you're going to identify the few activities and tasks that you're going to follow for developing the particular project. And in here, like DSDM, within DSDM, this project was used for limited tight time constraints, whereas Scrum is also used for limited time constraints. And when you've got changing requirements within the software and the business is very critical. So in here within DSDM, it was used only for tight time constraints, whereas Scrum is used for tight time constraints, and you've got multiple changing requirements, and then business criticality. Now in here, as you have stated that within the Scrum principle, it stated that the product that you're developing, it should be adaptable to changes within the technology as well as within the business. Now within the business, it can also affect the different policies that the business has. If you have to change the two things also, you should be able to do, whereas this particular thing was not available within the DSDM. So when you've got a project that requires changes within technology as well as the business along with the tight time constraints, you go for the Scrum Agile method. Now in here, the framework activities that are used are requirements. First, you're going to gather the requirements, then analysis. You're going to identify the risks that are associated with the software. You're going to do the coding part, designing or making the architecture, then evolution, that is you can design the different prototypes, or you're going to do the testing part and then deliver the product to the end user. Now in here, when you are developing each and every framework activity, you're going to perform the different work tasks. Now these work tasks are carried out by a process pattern that is called as sprint. Now in here, we have studied that it is going to follow a process pattern. This process pattern is called as sprint. The process pattern in here is called as sprint. Now what is sprint? Sprint is a work unit, that is, you can say, a set of people that are going to work on a specific requirement. Sprint is a team that is going to work on a specific work unit. Now I'm going to tell within detail the different terms that are used within the Scrum Agile method. Now in here, we have studied that the process pattern that you're following in here is called as sprint, is the process pattern that you're using in here. Now within this each process pattern is going to define a set of development tasks and allow the Scrum team to construct a process that is adaptable to the needs of the project. Now what are these development tasks that the sprint is going to follow? The first one is called as backlog. Now this backlog is called as the list of project requirements. That is all the requirements that were stated by the end user. The different features are going to be stored within the backlog. Now these different requirements, these are going to tell you what is the business value for the customer. That is embedding some specific requirement that is unique, that is going to give him so much amount of profit. That is going to be identified. Now in here, within this backlog, you're going to have a list of different project requirements. Now the question arises, who is going to access this project requirements? The person that is given access to this list of project requirements is called as the product manager. The product manager can access the list of requirements. Now in here, this product manager has got access so that he can update or make any changes within the list of requirements. Now in here, this product manager can update the list or he can prioritize some specific requirement. That is, changes in here are done only by the product manager. This list cannot be accessed by any other persons like the developers or the coding people. The next one is sprint. Now in this sprint, we have already discussed what is sprint. Sprint is a process pattern. Now in here, this sprint is going to consist of different work units. Now as you have seen that within the first slide of sprint, we have identified that sprint is going to have small teams. Now those small teams can be called as work units. Now these work units are required to achieve a specific requirement that is listed within the backlog. Now this list of requirements, within this list of requirement, the sprint team is going to access one specific requirement, and based on that, they are going to do the task so that the particular requirement is completed. Now if you're developing an e-commerce website and you want to add an additional column for, suppose, different types of shoes, the different types of shoes, you want to add another brand of shoes or anything, so that particular requirement, based on that particular requirement, the sprint team is going to work so that that particular feature is being added within the particular software. Now this feature needs to be delivered within a specified time frame, or we can say that this is called as the time box. Now time box means you're delivering the software within a specified time period. Now in here, another thing to be remembered within the sprint is that whenever you are working within the sprint, so in here, within this, when you are working on the sprint, this backlog and the different sprint items, that is what feature that you're working on, these are going to be frozen. Now frozen means when you're working on a particular requirement, you cannot go for any changes. No changes are there when you're working on that particular requirement. The next one is Scrum meetings. Now these, within the Scrum meetings are called as short meetings that will be held by the process pattern Scrum, or you can say the Scrum manager is going to host these meetings. And within these meetings, the Scrum manager is going to ask a few questions that need to be answered by the team members, the people that are working on them. The team members need to answer a set of questions. Now I'll be telling what are the different questions within the next slide. Now there's the diagram of Scrum. Now within the first stage, this is the first stage. You're going to have, from the customer, you're going to take the different inputs from the end user, customer, team, and other stakeholders. Now in here, the different inputs are going to be taken from the end user, the people that are going to use the software. Customer in here, the one who is developing the software. Now in here, the team and other stakeholders. Now whenever you're designing a particular software, in here you're going to have different stakeholders. That is, you're going to have the different managers, you're going to have the marketing people. Now all of these people are going to be benefited by the development of the particular software. So in here, based upon each and everyone's profit, you're going to take the input. That is, in here, the managers and the marketing people want new features within software so that they can sell them very fast. So the input is gathered from all the different stakeholders, team, and the end users. Now all of these features are collected by the product owner. Now this product owner is going to have a list of features. Now within this list of features is called as product backlog. Now as you've studied what is product backlog, it is going to be a list of features, and this list of features can be accessed only by the product manager. Now this product manager, what he can do, he can update this list, or he can prioritize any specific requirement. Now this Scrum methodology, it can also be used when you have got a priority. That is, I want this specific functionality to be developed to be delivered within that specific time frame. Then you go for the Scrum. So in here, this product manager has got access that he can make any changes within the product backlog. Now from this product backlog plan, you're going to make a plan of how much work you're going to do and you're going to commit for the sprint. Now in here, this task is going to be done by the team members that are going to do the coding part, the designing part, the testing part. These people are going to identify what work each team needs to do. That is a small working team. Now in here, you make a sprint planning meeting. Then within the sprint backlog, we have identified that in here, what you're going to do, you're going to take one specific requirement, and based on that specific requirement, you are going to deliver that specific feature in a time box. That is, within that specific time frame, you're going to design that particular feature. Now, when you're within the sprint backlog, the product backlog is going to be frozen. That is, no changes are accepted when you're performing the sprint backlog. Now, in here, when you have identified the different tasks and you're working on that, now it is written in here, no changes during the scope of the sprint cycle. Until this entire thing is completed, you're not going to make any changes in here. Now in here, while you're developing the particular software, now in here, you're going to perform the different sprint meetings. Now in here, the sprint meeting is going to be every 24 hours, and the entire software, if suppose it is going to take the time for 2 to 4 weeks, so in here within each and every day you're going to have Scrum meetings. Now in here, within the Scrum meetings, the Scrum Master is going to hold the Scrum meetings. Now this Scrum Master is going to ask a few questions. Now in here, those questions can be, the first question is, what did you do since the last meeting? Now this question is chosen so that you identify what is the amount of work that is done by each member. The second question is, what are the different obstacles that you are encountering? Now in here, if suppose the first question is that what did you do since the last meeting? If the answer is that you have not done anything, so in here, now why have you not done anything? It can be because due to some specific risk or some specific obstacles. So these obstacles are going to be identified within the Scrum meeting. Now when you identify what is the obstacle, you're going to identify what is your plan by the next meeting. Now, as you identify what are the different obstacles, how you're going to eliminate those obstacles, what are you going to do within the next meeting? Now, basically, you're going to try and reduce the risk, and you're going to start developing the software, add on the different features. Now, in here, by the end, you're going to have a potentially shippable product increment. Now, this potentially shippable product increment means in here, one specific feature is being completed, and that can be delivered. Now in here, you also got this retrospective. Now what is this retrospective? Now a retrospective, it is also a meeting that is held after the product is being shipped. Now in here, you've got a shippable product that is a completed project. Now when you've completed the particular product, you're going to have a meeting that is called as retrospective. Now within this, you're going to identify how you have delivered the particular product. What was the release process? What was the goal? How did you deliver each increment, and any future plans or any updates that are going to be discussed within the retrospective meeting. So this is the Scrum Agile process model. What happens within the Scrum model? All the inputs are collected by the product manager. Now those inputs can be from the end user, the customer, the different stakeholders. Based on that, you're going to make a product backlog. From the product backlog, the team is going to access one specific feature at a time, and they are going to start working on that. Now, while you're working on a specific feature, no changes can be done while the work is being done. Now, as the work is being done for specific different tasks, you're going to conduct different sprint meetings. Within the sprint meetings, the Scrum Master is going to ask specific questions to the team members. That is, what was done from the last meeting, what are the different obstacles that you're encountering, what are you going to accomplish by the next meeting. This all is going to be identified. Now in here, as the sprint meeting is completed by from 2 to 4 weeks of time, you are going to deliver that particular increment to the end user. As you're delivered the particular increment, you're going to again establish a meeting that is called as a retrospective, where you're going to identify what was the goal, how did you plan the different cycles, and then what is the future plan of the particular product that you delivered. So this ends the Scrum model. Now this Scrum, it is an iterative and incremental agile process. Now we have already discussed that it is iterative as well as incremental method. Now this Scrum is going to incorporate a set of process patterns. Now process pattern that we have discussed is, it is called as the sprint process pattern. We have taken the entire diagram for identifying how you're going to work upon the sprint, how you're going to complete a particular project by making use of the sprint pattern. Now in here, you're going to, now within this, what are the different things that you're going to focus on? Now within the diagram that we have not discussed, that is the project priorities. Now in here, as we have discussed, that the product manager has got access to the backlog where he can prioritize any requirement. That is, you need to deliver this specific requirement. That was basically first when you've added the requirements, it was not prioritized, but at the later you can prioritize any of the requirement from the backlog. Then compartmentalized work unit, that is in here, as we have studied that you're going to have small teams. Now these small teams, you can have multiple of these small teams that are going to be compartmentalized. So these small teams, they are going to work individually. That is, one feature is going to be accessed by one particular team at a time. Then communication. Now in here, as multiple teams are working upon different features, you need to have effective communication between the different teams. Now in here, why communication is the main theme in here is because at the end, some particular features might be combined. So in order to combine the specific features, you need to identify at what pace they are working, whether the particular product will be completed within the specified time frame. Then in here, you're also going to collect frequent customer feedback as you're developing the software in an incremental agile method. Now in here, as you're delivering one feature at a time, you're also going to take feedback from the customer. Now from this feedback, you can either make changes within the software or how you're going to optimize the software that is going to be identified. The next process model is Crystal. Now this Crystal agile process model, it was developed by Alistair Cockburn and Jim Highsmith. These were the two people that has designed a Crystal family of agile methods. That is, you're not going to have one particular model. Within this Crystal family of agile methods, you're going to have different models. Now these different models are based upon the different set of requirements, or you can say the different prioritization, and what is the time frame of the project that is to be developed. Based upon that, you're going to have different Crystal techniques that we're going to study today. Now in here, this Crystal methodology, it defines a set of methods, each with the core elements that are common to all roles. That is, in here, some core elements are going to be common for all the different Crystal techniques within the family. You're going to have the different process, different patterns, work products, and practices that are going to be unique for each of the particular process. Some core elements are going to be common, whereas the different approaches, the process patterns that you're going to perform, those are going to be unique based upon the different Crystal method that you're using. Now, this custom methodology that you're using, it does not require too much of documentation. Now, within the previous techniques that we have studied, we have identified that the different increments in which you are delivering the software, each of the increments, they need to be well documented. Whereas this crystal methodology, it does not involve too much of documentation, management, and reporting. Whereas this is going to focus upon a transparent workflow. That is what is happening, what you're developing. This development is going to be clear between the team that is going to develop the software and the client that is going to use the software. You're going to perform open communication between the team and the client. You're not going to focus on different documentation techniques. Now in here, as I told you that within the crystal family, you're going to have different crystal methodologies. So in here, these methodologies are designed by two different dimensions. Now these two different dimensions are based on size and the criticality of a particular software. Now, based upon the size of the particular software and how critical the particular software is that you are developing, in here, this crystal methodologies are given the different names of minerals based upon their color and based upon their hardness of the particular mineral. Now, within the crystal family, you're going to have different method. That is, first one is the crystal clear. Now, within this crystal family, as you've seen, this crystal family is divided, like all of these representations are done based upon the team size that is going to work, the criticality, that is how critical the particular software is that you're developing, and based upon priority of the software. Based on this differentiation is made. Now the first one is crystal clear. Now this crystal clear is made for teams of 8 members or fewer than 8, like fewer people. You're going to go for crystal clear. The next one is crystal yellow. Now this crystal yellow method, it is made for 10 to 20 people. The next is crystal orange. This is made for team members for 20 to 50 people. Then you've got crystal red. Crystal red are going to have team members for 50 to 100 people. Then the same thing, maroon is going to have more people. Diamond and sapphire, these are for more larger size projects. Now in detail, we'll be discussing this. The first one is crystal clear. Now within this crystal clear, now in here, as you studied, like till 8 members the team can be. Now in here, you're going to design small teams from 1 to 6 people. Like it can have till 8 people. You're going for design for 1 to 6 people. Now this crystal clear methodology is used when you need to support a fixed price. That is, in here the customer has got the constraint for the customer is cost. That is, he's got the limited cost that is given, and you need to deliver the software. You need to develop the software within that specified cost. He cannot pay more than that, and no negotiation contract is there. That is, in here, any changes within the software, those changes are not there within the crystal clear methodology. So no changes within the crystal clear. Then people oriented doesn't focus on process and artifacts much. Now in here, you're not going to focus upon the process and artifacts, because in here it requires less documentation. It requires very less documentation. It is not going to focus more upon the different artifacts or what are the processes that you're using. Each of the things are not going to be defined. So it requires less documentation, and this project is going to be focused on the focus is project safety. The next crystal methodology is crystal yellow. Now in here, you're going to have team size of 7 to 20 members. In here, clear ownership of code areas. That is, in here, when you've got like a particular project that has got different parts within the particular software that has to be developed. Now in here, this different code areas have got different ownership. That is one particular person, like you can have a particular agency where one particular you've got different partners, and different partners are going to focus on specific code areas. That this is where from this particular area they're going to take the profits. So you've got clear ownership of the different code areas, and this code area ownership is defined that if any change is required, then the only person who knows the code can be taking care of it. That is the person that is responsible for that specific code area. He's only going to make that changes within that specific department or the particular person that he has hired for coding. Now in here, the feedback is going to be taken by real users. Now in here, whenever you're developing a particular software, within the developer team only, one of the developer or they are going to work for the particular software and they can take feedbacks. But in here, only real users, when you have delivered the customer, you're going to call one person from the team or the customer that is going to use the particular software, and you're going to take the feedback from that particular user. From real users only, you're going to take the feedback. Again, this crystal yellow, it reduces the need for too much documentation. You're not going to require too much documentation in here, whereas you're going to focus upon the mission statement, that is what is the goal of the software that you're developing. And in here, each of the things that are defined by the end user that are going to be verified with the customer. Now in here, there might be an end user, a particular person or a particular company that is designing a particular software to be developed for some specific type of customers. So in here, you're going to call some specific set of customers so that you can verify that whether these are only the things that you want within the particular software. So you're going to verify each of the goals that are defined with the customer. Now in here, you're also going to focus on automated testing to resolve bugs faster. That is, any changes that you're going to make within the code, in here it is going to start with the automated testing. Now when you're using automated testing, it resolves the different bugs very quickly because in here it is automated. It is going to perform the testing on itself. Then in here, within the crystal yellow methodology, you're going to have monthly improvement plans. That is, in here you're going to give different updates for the particular software. You can provide updates, you can provide different optimizations for the particular software. Then you have a crystal orange. Now within this crystal orange, you can have a team size of 21 to 40 members, and the project is going to last for 1 to 2 years. When a project requires this much of time, you go for crystal orange methodology. Now in here, as the project is long, you're going to split up teams as per the functional skills. That is, in here, based upon the requirement of the particular project, you're going to have some complex operations, you might have some simple operations, you might have different work on the different interfaces. So based upon the functional skills, the people that are skilled to work on the complex software, that are skilled to work upon the different interfaces, or specific people that are very good at resolving issues or testing part, based upon that you're going to make different teams so that they can focus on the work that they are skilled on. Like a particular person, if you're hiring a person that has got full knowledge of some particular area only, then if he works on the project on that specific area, it is going to be very good for the company as well as the project. It is also going to decrease the time taken to develop the particular project. Now this crystal orange, it follows an incremental development. Now incremental development, it means you're going to deliver the software in different parts. That is, different features are going to be delivered by different updates within the software. Now in here, as this entire project is going to require 1 to 2 years of time, now these different features, they are going to be delivered within the time frame of 3 to 4 months. And every release will be called as increment as for every project. Now this is designed for medium-sized projects. Now in here, some medium-sized projects can also require time for 1 to 2 years. The next one is crystal red. Now in here, within the crystal red, the traditional software development methods get followed by the team of 40 to 80 members. Now that's crystal red team that is in here. If suppose you this is a large project, so in here the team members can vary from 40 members to 80 members based upon the size of the particular project and the priority of the project. size, priority, and how critical the project is. Based upon that, you're going to identify the team members. Now in here, these teams are formed and divided as per the work required. Like within the previous model, it is you're going to split up the different teams. You're going to split teams based upon the different work on different set of requirements, or based upon interface, based upon complexity. Based on this, the different teams are going to be developed. Then you have a crystal maroon. Now within this crystal maroon, in here, the way it is used for very large projects, that is, they can have a team size for 80 to 200 people. That is a lot of people. So this is used for very large projects. The next one is crystal diamond and crystal sapphire. Now within this crystal diamond or crystal sapphire, this are the methods that are used for very critical and large scale projects. Now very critical means if suppose this particular software development, it involves human life risk. You're developing a particular software for a particular hospital. Now if that software is going to crash or it is not going to work properly, it might result in risking a particular human's life. So you're going to go for the diamond or crystal sapphire method. Now in here, the team and strategies get decided as per the criticality. That is, how is the life of the human involved. Based upon that, you're going to identify what is the criticality and how you're going to develop the particular software. Now within the previous techniques like crystal and maroon, we have said that it is taken for very large scale projects. Now based upon that, if we discuss it in depth, it is going to take a lot of time. So within this crystal methodologies, these models are going to be asked for 5 to 6 mark answers. It can be asked along with the agile principles. So in here, if you cover the different crystal methodologies and you write a few points for each of the crystal method, then it will be enough. You do not need to cover each of them in detail. You can write the team size and the time required to develop the project, and a few points like the crystal and diamond, it requires human risk, the time box techniques, and the teamwork that is split among different team members. If you define that much, that will be enough. The next model is feature driven development. So next model, feature driven development. This model was designed by Peter Code. That initially Peter Code designed this particular model. Now this was a process model that was designed for OOSE, that is object oriented software engineering. Now as the name says, feature driven development, you're going to develop a particular model based upon the different features that are given specific value by the customer. That is, some specific feature is given some specific priority that this need to be delivered at the very first increment. Now in here, each and every feature in here that is being developed, it needs to be implemented within 2 weeks of time or less than that. Whenever you're following the FDT approach, you need to deliver each increment within 2 weeks or less of the time. Now in here, the template that is going to follow is the action that you're going to perform, the result, by, for, to, then the object. Now let me write this. The template is action, the, what is the result, then by, for, of, to, then object. Now in here, this object this particular object, it can be a person, it can be a place, it can be a thing, a role, description of a particular process, or a moment in time. So what is an object? An object can be a person, a place, a thing, role, description, or a moment in time. Now in here, if you want to implement this template, an example is we want to add a specific feature in an e-commerce website. Now implementing it by the specific template, you're going to add the product to shopping cart. So in here, action is, what is action? Action is you're adding. The result is adding the product, some specific product that you have buy. Now this is, you can take in here buy, for, offer to. So in here you're taking to, adding the product to the object. What is the object? It can be a place, person, thing, or a role. So you're adding that particular product to a object, that is shopping cart. So this is one example of adding a feature by making use of FDD. The second one is, if you want to display the technical specifications of a product. Now in here we are using of. Your action is you're going to display a particular product, technical specifications of that particular product, that is the object. Or you want to store some specific information for a particular product, or the shipping details, those can be the different examples for adding a feature by making use of FDD. Now in here, you're adding one specific feature. Now if suppose you want a particular feature that is a part of another feature, so you can have an action plus ing for a particular object. Now if we take an example for this, this will be making a product sale. Now in here, the object is product sale, action is plus ing, you're making a product sale. So in here, this is a feature set that is going to group different features into a business category. That is in here, for a particular product sale, within this product sale, it is going to have different products, different brands are going to be there. So in here, you're going to have a feature set that is going to group into different business related categories. That is, you can have the different brands within a particular product. So based on that, this is the template that you're going to use within the feature driven development. Now in here, this feature driven development, this is the diagrammatic representation for FDD. Now FDD defines 5 collaborating framework activities. These are the framework activities that are going to be implemented. Now in here, you're going to give more emphasis upon the different management guidelines. You're going to focus on the management guidelines and the different techniques that are there to model a particular feature. Now in here, the first one is, the first activity is develop an overall model. That is, it focuses on more shape than content. Now suppose you are developing an e-commerce website. So within the first phase, you're going to focus on what is going to be the overall look for the particular software, because the end user first is going to be interested in overall how your website is going to look like, how attractive it is, how easy the user interface is going to be. So it is going to focus more upon the shape than the content. That is going to be the first step. Then in here, the next step is building a feature list. When you identify how it is going to look like, the user interface, everything you've discussed, the basic requirements, you're going to identify the different features that are going to be present within the particular software that you're designing. Now in here, the different features that can be, you want to have a different mobile column, a different TV appliances column. Then you've got men's fashion, then you have women's fashion, kids fashion, different features in here, sports, fitness, beauty, health. These are the different features that you're identifying. That is a feature list. You want all of this to be embedded within the e-commerce website. So in here, you're going to have a list of all the features. Now in here, within these features, you're going to group them into sets. Now in here, if you focus upon this men's fashion. Now within this men's fashion, you're going to have different categories. Now within men's fashion, you're going to have a clothing line, like you're going to have the different watches that are for men. You're going to have different sunglasses. You can have the different accessories. So in here, you're going to group all of this under men's fashion. Then if you go for this mobile development, within this mobile development, you're going to have the different mobile accessories are going to be there. Different mobile accessories are going to be there. You're going to have different, you can have different power banks. So based on this, you're going to group them into different categories. Then you're going to plan by each of the feature. Now in here, as we're discussing men's fashion, you've got different watches, sunglasses, accessories, you can have different sportswear, you can have shoes. So in here, based upon all of this, you're going to plan by each one feature at a time. If you're discussing men's fashion, then you're going to design men's fashion first. If you're discussing mobile and different accessories for mobiles, you're going to plan by that specific feature. Now in here, a development plan is based upon the class owner and feature set owners. Now in here, a class owner is like who is going to focus upon one specific feature, who is going to develop the watches feature brand, and who is going to overlook the men's fashion. That is, you're going to make a development plan based upon this entire class owner and the different set owners features, the different watches, sunglasses, who is going to individually design them. You're going to build this. Now in here, by combining the first framework activity and the second framework activity, that is called as your initial modeling, because in here you're designing the overview of the website and the different features that is going to be there. Whereas the next feature is you're going to design by the specific feature and you're going to build by the specific feature. Now in here, as you've got a list of different designs, you're going to make a design package. Now in here, within the design package, as in men's fashion, you've got watches, sunglasses, accessories. Now within watches also, you can have the different brands. So in here, you're going to bundle all of these watches and the different brands as one particular package. Now if suppose you just click on a specific brand of watches, it is going to display that specific brand. That is, each of the watches that is belonging to that particular brand, they are going to be bundled in a package. That is, your search can be filtered based upon that particular brand. Then you're going to, as you've designed based upon this, you're going to build. That is, first you're designing an architecture, then you're going to actually do the coding part in here. That is the completed client valued function. Now in here, this particular feature that is designed by feature, built by feature, this is going to happen multiple times until the entire website is completed. That is for all the different features, for men's fashion, for women's fashion, sports, mobile, TV, beauty, health, care, all of this is going to be complete. Now in here, combining the second framework activity and the fourth framework activity, it is called as model storming. Now in here, model storming means, now in here, there is a term that is called as brainstorming. Now brainstorming means you're going to collect multiple ideas from different set of people. That is, everyone is going to be given a chance so that they can speak up their ideas. What can be there within the particular software? You are going to collect ideas. The same way, you're going to model storming, how this particular feature is going to design, how you're going to model it, how you're going to code it, how this is going to look like. Each of the things are going to be designed within this FDD model. So there are 5 framework activities, and they are going to be, the last part is going to occur multiple times until the website is completed. Now in here, within this, we have already discussed that FDD has got greater focus upon how you're going to manage a particular project and what are the different techniques that are used to build a particular software. Now in here, if the project is going to grow in size, that is if the project is very large, so as the project is growing in size, the complexity of the project is also going to increase. So as the size and the complexity of the project is increasing, it becomes very difficult for the developers and the managers to manage what work is being done. So in here, now, as the project is growing in size, the developers and the managers, it becomes difficult for them to manage the particular project. Now, in here, it becomes difficult for managing the project, and as well as the deadline of the particular project is also going to arise, is going to come soon. So in here, to identify this, when you're going to deliver one software increment so that it does not crosses the deadline, you've got 6 milestones that is going to help you with this type of difficulty. Now this 6 milestones is going to have, the first milestone is going to be a design walkthrough. Now a design walkthrough means whenever you're designing, you're going to have an overview or a review for the entire design, what you are developing, that is going to be identified. Then you're going to actually design the architecture. Then when you've done the designing part, you're going to inspect how your design is. Inspection. You're going to take how accurate your software is, how robust your design is, that is going to be identified. Then based on that, you're going to start with the coding part. Then when you have done the code, you're going to go for the code inspection. And when the code inspection is done, then promote to build. That is, you're going to develop the final software. So these are the 6 milestones that are going to help when the project grows in size and the complexity increases and the managers are unable to manage the project, and you need to decide within how much time the software increment need to be delivered. So when you follow the 6 milestones, it becomes easy for you to keep track of the particular project. The last model is Agile modeling AM. Now this is a model, this is a practice-based methodology for effective modeling and documentation. Now, as we have studied within the Crystal methodology model, you did not focus upon the documentation and different modeling techniques, whereas Agile modeling is going to focus upon the different modeling and documentation for the particular software that is going to be built. Now this Agile modeling, it also focuses, like whenever you're developing a particular model using Agile modeling, you need to be confident enough that you make decisions that if suppose you're making a decision is going to involve that if all the work that you have done, that might go to waste and you need to again start from the beginning, but that was the best decision that was taken. So you need to have that courage so that you make some specific decisions that is going to be very helpful for the software that you're developing. Now in here, you've got specific modeling principles that are going to be followed for Agile modeling. Now the first one is model with a purpose. Now model with a purpose means you need to identify what is the specific goal before you started modeling this particular software, as Agile modeling focuses on modeling. So before you're starting the modeling part, you're going to identify what is the main goal, why you're developing the software. That needs to be identified while developing the software. The next one is using multiple models. Now in here, you can make use of many models and the different notations so that you can describe the software efficiently or effectively. That is, what are the different features that are involved within the software, what is going to be the user interface. If different models are required, like you can make use of some type of graphical representation. You might have some 3D development technique, or you might you might need a prototype to fully identify what are the different functionalities of the particular software. So you're going to make use of all of them so that you understand the software very well. Then the next one is travel light. Now in here, as you have developed multiple models, in here you're going to keep those models only that are going to provide you with long-term value, that has got the main features, or that the features that are, if suppose you've got, as you have seen that you've got graphical representation, 3D and prototype. Now in here, if suppose the prototype is very helpful, but that is, it is going to help you identify how the software is going to look like, what are the interfaces, so you're going to keep the prototype. Now if suppose the 3D representation is very good and it is going to provide you with more insight within the future in the software, you're going to focus on the 3D model only. So that is the model that is going to help you by developing the software for the entire lifetime of the project. Then you're going to keep those models only. Then content is more important than representation. Now in here, if suppose you've got the perfect model but it represents very less or sparse knowledge, then this model is not useful. Whereas if you've got a flawed model that has got many defects but it is going to give you more intel, then this model is very helpful and you're going to keep this specific model. The next one is know the models and tools used to create them. That is, the different models and tools that you develop, you need to know the strength and weakness of each and every tool. Now in here, the strength and weakness is, suppose you are developing the particular software by making use of some specific tool, but there is a disadvantage of the tool that is going to affect your software, so you are not going to use that particular tool. So you need to know what is the strength and weakness of each tool before you're creating the particular software. Then the last framework activity is adapt locally. Now in here, adapt locally means you need to identify the modeling approach that should be adapted to the needs of the agile team. The different techniques, the different steps that you're using, the approach that you're identifying, this should be adaptable based upon the agile team. That is, in here, the changes, if they are requested, you need to be able to make that changes within the modeling approach. Now in here, as you've studied the seven different models for agile, so in here, what are we going to choose? Agility, or just going to go for the software engineering approach? That is the waterfall model, the incremental model. Which are we going to choose? Now in here, you do not need to choose between agility or the different software engineering model, the incremental model, waterfall model. Instead, you're going to make a software engineering approach that is agile, that is adaptable to the different changes and the different priorities that you require within your particular project. Based upon your requirement, you're going to select the particular project. Based on your requirement, you're going to select a strategy that best suits your project.